Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I have three spooky, mysterious words today that you probably said. I'm sure you've heard, but then when you ask, like, what does it mean? It's all of a sudden kind of like gets a little ambiguous and people start to hem and haw. So I want to unpack these three words, and the three words are scale your business. And I'm honored to be hanging out with the founder and CEO of Proven Chaos, Jerry Macnamara. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Dave. I really appreciate you having me on the show and chatting with you and sharing whatever experiences I can give to the audience.
Well, you told me before we jumped on about a couple of companies that you you scaled up from one spot to the next. And again, I don't know about you, maybe it's me, but I'm hearing this scale your business thing all over the place. So why don't you, what is that? How do you define that in your words, Jerry?
Well, I think, first of all, I would start with you have to get really intentional. And scaling businesses, just like starting businesses, may not be for everyone, and that's okay. I've been lucky to be in the right place at the right time. I do love drinking from the fire hydrant of business. And, the first business that I helped run was a retail franchise company. We took that from 5.9 million to 15 million in 18 months.
Wow.
And that's when I really fell in love with the whole notion of scaling businesses. It's why the name of my company is Proven Chaos, because I work with companies who have proven there's a marketplace, but they're in chaos because their people, their systems, their process have not kept up with the scale that they've created. And so we help create those guardrails and bring them back into, a bit of calm so that you can enjoy your life. Because sometimes when you are scaling your business, it can get a little hairy, a little stressful as you do that. But
Yeah.
I always tell people you need to bring conscious intention, Dave, to everything that you do, because sometimes we buy into this notion of more and now, and as our pastor Joby says, more and now are the words of the devil.
Yeah.
And so it only matters if you want more and now, and if you want more and now, then you should go do that.
Right.
And for me, it's something that I've loved doing, scaling businesses.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, obviously intentionality is huge. That's why I called my book Growing on Purpose, because I run into a ton of companies, Jerry, that grow by mistake. And you try and
Mm-hmm.
ask them, how did you do that? And they're like, I have no clue what just happened, And not that I want to know the formula as much as I want to encourage them to be able to, how can you do it again? How can
Yes.
you, like to your point, so you take a business from $6 million and then you grow it to $18 million, or 15 million in 18 months, right? The numbers backwards. So
Yep.
6 million to 15 million in 18 months. Now, if you didn't know, if I've run into people like that, I say, how'd you do that? And they're like, I have no clue how I did that, right? And so that's what I think is so powerful about your story is then you went ahead and did that again. So there was intentionality there. Tell us about the second one. What did that look like?
Yeah, so I was brought in to run a construction business, which is only funny because I am the least handy person that you will ever meet, Dave. In fact, when I was
No
brought in,
hammers in your household, huh? You're not
no,
allowed to go by the hammer?
actually, my wife has the hammer and the drill, and I'm happy that she is way more handy than I am. When we hang pictures in our house, it's not because of me. Let's just say that.
Why is it
In
we
fact,
then? What is this we thing? We hang pictures, so she hangs them and you watch is basically
I,
what you
I
I'm
I watch. I usually drink wine. I usually tell her if it's a little crooked or not.
there you go.
Uh,
The
but
more wine, the
we
less crooked, I'm guessing, right?
That's
Yep.
exactly right. That's
There you
exactly right.
go.
And I think that's just a belief that everyone has a role. But as I told the owner who brought me in to become CEO of that company, I said the only thing I hammer is my keyboard. But if you want a keyboard hammered right, I'm your guy.
Perfect.
That one worked out pretty good. We went from 7 million to 30.5 million in 3.5 years. That
Wow.
thing was a rocket ship, maybe Inc. 500, Jacksonville Business Journal, fastest growing companies. And the other piece of that I think is really important is we were also a best places to work. And I think you can scale a business and still be a compelling, loving place to be. And I come back to um, for me, as you were saying, people don't know how to do it. And so we were sharing that I just had 17 of my senior leaders into Jacksonville for a weekend mastermind together. And we spent a lot of time thinking about what is the important, painful problem that we solve for the marketplace,
Sure.
and who is our ideal client. Because when I think about things and easing the burden of leadership, I really think about things in systems, process, and frameworks. And the only way you can create repeatable, predictable, scalable success is having those things defined. And so for me, my process looks like, because like you, asking people that you've worked with, I had a friend of mine after I had won the Ultimate CEO Award, and he said, "How have you done this?" At that point in time, that was at my fourth company. He said, "How have you done this? You've created success at some level with four different companies," and he was very successful in his own right in the medical field. He said, "I'm struggling to keep up in one, and you've done it in four." And I said, "Sean Tomberlin, I'm not sure. Let me think about that." And I
Sure.
really had to bring a lot of conscious intention. So the first one is the 9 principles of personal performance, because we need to have great people inside of our business. And so let's bring a framework to making sure that the people in our care know how to create a wonderful, fulfilled life. The second piece of that is the business acceleration model, which is the model that I think about in scaling businesses. It came inherently to me, Dave, but it wasn't something that I had really thought about or sat down and written until after my fourth company. And I think the gap that I find between that is really the leadership gap. People moving from that high achieving individual contributor into leading organizations. And so, think about the people who get promoted, they're the high achievers. They're the people who are great at the doing. That doesn't mean that they're great at leading people. And so we have to train them to lead people, because it's very different doing the doing versus leading the people.
Sure.
And so that's really how I think about businesses and creating that predictable, scalable, repeatable model, in making sure that businesses can move really, really fast and do it again and again.
Sure. Well, and I think it's interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Jerry. I think that the alignment that I have with that is that in my book, Growing on Purpose, part of my formula is to strengthen the team. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when you say best places to work, I guess the immediate question came into my mind is that, do you think that if you weren't voted that, not that voting itself, but that whole concept, if you wouldn't have been one of the best places to work, do you feel like you would have been able to still scale those businesses to those levels?
Never. I
Okay.
mean, I say, in the second half of my career, I'm on a mission to positively impact 5 million people now over the next 4 years, because I started a year ago, and I'm
Okay.
on track to do that. But really, it's about helping senior leaders create compelling companies, because compelling companies always outperform. And someone asked me, what's a compelling company look like? It's like, well, it's very clear about the purpose and the impact that we have to exist, and we treat our people in our care with such concern that they love what they're doing because they're aligned with the vision, the values, and they love the position that they fill within the company. You get that alignment right, and suddenly you can be a rocket ship. But that's
Well,
really the thing that I
yeah,
think about is, when your people get surprised that they get paid for the work that they do, that's when you're off to the races.
sure.
And not that we would ever not pay our people, but if we have that mindset of like, holy shit, I get paid to do this, this is
Yeah.
amazing,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Well, and I think that, who have you ever met an entrepreneur or business owner when asked the question, do you care for your people? Do you have concern for your people? Who's ever said, no, I really could care less. I churn and, I treat them like dirt, and, the more that run through here, the better, right? I think this is a really big, huge blind spot for people. And this is the next book I'm working on right now, is about business blind spots. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
such a big blind spot because, the polls just came out that, less than 1 in 4 employees right now feel that they're actually cared for by their leader.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that means that just is that's I just that blows my mind. If I have 100 people on my team, that means 75 of those people really don't feel like they're cared for by their leadership. So
Yeah.
there's no way they're going to be in the best places to work. There's no way they're going to align with the purpose of the company. I mean, they're in it just to get a paycheck, to do as little as possible, protect
Mhm.
themselves. I mean, there's no vulnerability, there's nothing. So, I mean, how do you help somebody listening right now that may think my people are fine when in fact they may not be? I mean, what advice would you have for that guy or girl listening?
So, um, two things come to mind right away. One is I call it the four C's of leading, right? So the four C's to me are: do your people have clarity over how they win and how they contribute to the organization? The second is, are they challenged by the work that they're doing? Because if they're not challenged over time, they're going to get bored and they're going to look for other things to do. The third is they have to be comfortable that they have the tools, time, and training to be successful, that what they're being asked to do to contribute to the organization, they have a level of competence and the tools to do it. And then the fourth, to your point, is do their leaders care about them? And if you get those four things right, people don't leave you because they feel that love. My first value is love your people, treat them as whole people,
Sure.
right? When you do that and you take that approach, it changes the dynamic of your relationships, which means um, I don't know, Dave, you just as a business person inside my organization. I know you, I know your spouse, I know your kids, I know that you love to go listen to music. And so maybe instead of giving you a bonus, I'm buying you tickets because that reflects my knowledge of you as a person. That's how
Sure.
you win when
Yep.
you go. To me, that's not going above and beyond. That is truly loving your people and treating them as whole people. And so if you get those four things right and you ask, how was your son's soccer tournament this weekend? How did they perform?
Yep.
It's a very different relationship than you didn't put out enough widgets today, Dave.
Right.
And,
Yep.
the second thing that I advise leaders is we have to get really clear on how we're going to show up for our people, right? I don't know if you've ever had a situation where you've been inside an organization where one day it was okay to do something and the next day it was not okay. And I call this the leadership quicksand, where
Sure.
confusion leads to frustration, frustration leads to breaks in trust lead to low relationships, and low relationships lead to low performance. And you have the leader say, my people, they're the bad news bearers, they just can't perform. It's not
Yep.
their fault. It's our fault as the leader. We haven't created a fertile environment for people to make agile, engaged, and autonomous decisions in pursuit of the company's goals. Why? Because we haven't created clarity on exactly what our people should be doing. And
Yeah.
if we can do that, we ease that burden of leadership for ourselves, and our people feel more engaged and they show up and they go like, this is fun. This is amazing.
Wow, that's awesome. Clarity, challenged, comfortable, and care.
Yep.
So, the interesting thing though, so this is where I think most people stop, and I want to dig a little bit deeper because the people listening, and I would even say for myself in my prior company before I sold, and when I had my team and we were doing awesome. My challenge, and most of the people listening right now, they're saying, yeah, this is really good stuff, Jerry. Where do I find the time to understand? I have a bunch of people on my team. How do I
Mhm.
do this? Because, I know that, the receptionist, Katie, has two kids, but you know what? I always forget their names. And I got to go make payroll. I got to make rent. I got to go sell something, blah, blah, blah. How in the world does an entrepreneur that is agreeing with us, but has not understanding how to implement, what are some
Yeah.
simple things that we can do here?
Yeah. So, two things that are real clear and easy for me. One is I never went to lunch alone.
Okay.
So
Yep.
I was gonna have to eat lunch. I would walk out onto the floor. I'd say, Dave, come to lunch with me. Jennifer, come to lunch with you. Crystal, come to lunch with me, and we would go. And it wasn't about work. If they had questions for me, certainly I answered them. But that was my time to get to know them as a person,
Sure.
and to create a relationship that spanned beyond the work that we're doing. I think the other thing that I would encourage our entrepreneurs to do is to make that move from, the founder entrepreneur to the CEO. And that means that, as high achievers, we feel like we have to do all the doing. That
Right.
is not our role. Our role is to resource the things that need to get done. So it is not a good use of your time to be doing payroll. You should have a bookkeeper that is doing payroll for you.
Sure.
You should outsource every function that is not a core function that is uniquely yours and that's inspiring to you as quickly as you can and as fast as you can afford to do it.
Right.
And that creates the gap in the time that you need to invest in your relationships. Because why have I been able to successfully lead 5 companies without ever being the technical leader in any of those businesses? Because leading people is the same no matter where you go.
Sure.
And so when I look at whether it's a retail franchising, manufacturing, e-commerce, construction, business services, leading people is the same again and again and again. And so you have to invest in your people. Your product, your service is your people. That is my client when I'm
Yeah.
the CEO. And when you change that mindset, then the answer is, how could I not afford to be
Mm.
pouring into my people and investing
Sure.
into my people? The other thing that I did, I'll just use the construction company.
Yeah.
I had on my calendar every day at 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and I didn't do it every day, but that was to go walk the floor, to
Yep.
talk to people, to high five them, and to give specific feedback, Dave, and not just to say, Dave, you're doing a great job. That one goes right over the top of people's head and feels disingenuous. If you can give a specific example of, Dave, I saw you do this thing, and it was a great reflection of how I want our company run and how our values come to life. Thank you for doing that. That is a more meaningful thing. I saw you, I saw how you showed up, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. That's how you continue to pour into people and you build world-class relationships. When you do that, again, great things are possible.
Wow, that's so awesome. And I know that most of us are used to getting, yeah, I tell people, catch somebody doing something right
Yeah.
rather than catch them doing something wrong. Because I think back to my first job making pizzas at Shakey's. I was 15 years old and I got caught many a time doing the wrong thing, right? And those are the things that stuck in my mind over the years. And that's
Yep.
what I kind of judged leadership as, like always telling me what to do, So now I want to stick it to him or her, right? There's like this combat going on. And that's how
Right.
I was raised. And fortunately, my early 20s, I started to, get into the entrepreneurial world and I started businesses that way. So maybe that was why, because I couldn't handle the other way. I don't know. But there are plenty of people listening that have that same concept of, my boss is not my friend. Right now, the statistics show 3 out of 4 people leave their job because of their boss. And so, it's crazy how we could like the job, we could like the company, we could like our team, we could like its mission, but because there's one individual between us and success in our mind, we bail. I mean, that's painful.
It is painful. And I'll share this experience. The last company that I was brought in to run, I loved the mission that we were on. I loved the people that I was serving and the owner that had brought me in as CEO. Great guy. But our approaches to business were dramatically different. And, he was more, concerned to make sure everything was perfect and right. And I was more Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond. And our approaches were just very different. And so that made it not fun for me. And for me, that meant that I wasn't a great husband. I wasn't a great dad. I wasn't a great friend. And, it was my wife who looked at me and she said, you know what? Listen, um, you're not being your best because your work is impeding your ability to come home and be the best. And that's why I'm on this mission to positively impact 5 million people, because it had never occurred to me, Dave, that I could be inside a business that I didn't enjoy, that I showed up to every single day.
Sure.
And it was the first time where I couldn't change the rules of the game. I could always change the rules of the game. I just made the rules more fun. And that's when I just thought, holy smokes, this is what it means when you're not good at work, you can't be great at home. And if you're not good at home, you can't be great at work. And that's why you have to care for people as whole people, because someone's going through a divorce, or they just got cancer, or they have some family situation going on. As the CEO, I need to know that so that I can be empathetic and understand how we can make accommodations for those people, because everyone's watching when you do that.
Yeah.
How you treat people is always on display, and I think sometimes we miss that. And to your point, I've never met anyone who showed up to work and said, you know what, I really want to suck today.
Yeah.
And yet there's plenty of people who are ineffective. And I tell
Yeah.
them it's not their fault. It's the senior leader's fault. We've missed the
Yeah.
mark creating those 4 C's for people
Right.
and connecting them to the mission that we're on. And so that's the thing that I just keep on bringing people back to. So if you're in a situation where you have values misalignment, that's okay. Recognize it, acknowledge it, see if it can change. And if not, then you should join someone else's mission, because your happiness is super important to your family, to your friends, to your health. And you deserve it. You're worth it.
How in the world did you take that, Jerry, when your wife said that to you? That must have been a kind of a kick in the nads, so to speak, because I don't know that. How did you, was that like, oh my gosh, thank you, honey? Or were you resistant at first when she shared that with you?
Um, I have a
Or should
great
I ask
partner.
her? I should probably ask her.
No, I've had some fun in my life, but my wife is way more successful than I am. Um, and so one of the things that I've always appreciated about Rachel is she is so honest and so forthright. And so when she said that to me, it took me about 30 seconds to reflect, because I really did love the mission that I was on. I really did love the people that I got to serve, but she was 100% right. Um, and so, in very short order, I said, this isn't the right position for me, and stepped away from that business. I appreciate that I have a partner that is willing to do that instead of
Right.
allowing you to grind and not be your best.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the importance of an outside view. That's the importance of a consultant, a
Mm-hmm.
coach. I think about Charles Barkley's golf swing and how horrendous that is. And, that's what a lot of our companies look like. And when someone comes and says, hey, you're doing this wrong, it feels so natural, so normal that you don't even know it. So we encourage people as often as we can, get an outside view. Get CEO roundtable, get some kind of group accountability partner, get somebody that's not in your company that is able to get your ear, probably not even a family member. You're rare to have Rachel
Yeah.
be able to share that with you. But that's
I, I,
I think really
I
important.
I agree with you here, Dave, and I wrote about this. It's somewhere on my blog. It was in 2010 or 2011. I can't remember. And I said the biggest mistake that I made as a senior leader was not having a business coach, a business mentor, or a business roundtable,
Yep.
because I never aspired to be in the position that I'm in, where I'm advising companies. Quite honestly, I exited the construction company. I was on my boat fishing every day. And I blame the work that I've done over the last number of years on Matt Foxhall, who I got introduced through a friend. He said, I have this new CEO that just started. I ran into him accidentally at a conference and met him for breakfast a number of times. He said, I need you to help run my business. I was like, I don't know. I'm fishing every day.
I'm
I don't know
fishing.
if I
Come
want to.
on.
I'm fishing. And over time it just merged my passion. I always thought I was going to be a teacher, and then I realized the world didn't value teaching and learning the way that I did.
Sure.
So I just teach in business. That's what I've done my whole career.
Wow, that's so cool. And again, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be
Mm-hmm.
elaborate. It needs to be somebody that is able to look at your business and give you some really sometimes some cold hard truth, because our blind spots are all over the place when it
I
comes to
know.
our business. And again, usually somebody on your team says, hey, this isn't really working, I know that I've seen immediate reactions, usually are not to the positive. Most entrepreneurs that get challenged aren't like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for challenging me. Thank you for calling me out. You know what? That's usually not the first response. And like you said, on your end, Jerry, it took you 30 seconds after Rachel shared that with you. So you had that, self-awareness to kind of think before you talk. And not a lot of people have that. And most of the time we're immediately going to justify, you're worse than I am. We're blaming, we're trying to, well, the government, the weather, there's the customer.
No,
I've heard them all. You've heard them all.
I think as I think about that, when you really think about living a fulfilled life, it's about the impact that you want to go make and in alignment with your values. So when you align your vision, your values, and your actions, you have the chance for fulfillment, your life on your terms, which I think is the highest purpose of life.
right.
And when I look at those things, Dave, I say, don't let their values become your values, right? It's easy to get sucked into the negativity or whatever it may be. I'm very comfortable with who I am and how I'm going to show up as an individual. Why? Because I've spent hours thinking about how I want to show up.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I say every morning, my morning intentions, I will add an insane amount of joy into the world today. I'm constantly scanning the landscape of ways that I can make people's days. The other one is to live in wonder, not in judgment. And so when someone gives me that feedback, I say, interesting, Dave, tell me more.
Yep.
Because I'm so committed to winning that getting hard feedback to me is a gift. And that to me, is something that we should embrace. In fact, I know you're working on a book on blind spots, right? One of the things that I do to embrace that is I tell people in every company that I get invited in on, and every company that I've run, you have 100% permission, 100% of the time, something that is happening inside of our organization, we all have to have such a commitment to the impact that we're going to go make. You have to tell me because I can't see it all. And I think when you give people that explicit permission, it changes the dynamics of people aren't leaving meetings and talking about you behind your back. You've given their permission, as I say, the PCC, the positive constructive conflict. If we're all together in pursuit of a long-term goal and we're aligned on our vision, our values, and how we act, then suddenly you change the dynamics of how we interact with each other. That becomes super powerful. And I know that I could not have done, a near anything in my career without the people around me. I got lucky to be in the right place at the right time with the right people. And, we create that fertile environment for people to perform and have conversations.
Yeah.
And I think when you start shutting those pieces of feedback down, you're really missing the mark as the CEO or as the senior leader, anyone who's in leadership. As my former COO used to say, Zach Mitchell, when people are talking, we are winning.
Right.
And I think that was one of the greatest pieces of advice that he gave me. How do we get people talking more often? And, I was giving one of my COOs some feedback this morning. And I said to him, when someone would come to my office and they'd say, hey, I have this problem with Dave. I'd say, okay, great. Here, walk with me. And I would walk them directly to your office. And I'd say, hey, Dave, Bill has something to tell you. And then I would turn and walk back to my office. Why?
Nice.
Because as professionals and as adults, we need to foster those communications. I don't need to be your intermediary.
Yep.
I need you to have the courage and the confidence to have that conversation with someone face to face.
Yep.
And, when you eliminate, being that shoulder to cry on, then you eliminate all of the gossiping and the backstories and having to get information from third-hand sources. It's like, no, we're going to have fourth-rate conversations directly, and you win more often when you do that.
Well, and I think the question that I like to ask is, how safe is this place? On a scale of 1 to 10, how safe is it? How safe do you feel here? Not safety from a physical perspective, But to your point, safety from, hey, I got a problem here. I feel comfortable that I can share it. I have an idea that might go and conflict with the way the business is going. I still feel comfortable sharing it. I mean, if people don't feel comfortable sharing stuff, then what, like you said, they're not going to talk. I mean, if we want
Totally.
people to talk, I mean, we hire, Steve Jobs said, we don't hire, dumb people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people and they tell us what to do. Who's talking in that spot is really important. And if I work for you, Jerry, and I don't trust you, no offense, but I'm going to clam up. I'm not going to say much. I'm hiding under the radar. I'm trying to
Absolutely.
just, keep my head below, the shot level and just, get home. That's all I want to
That
do is get home in one
that's
piece.
why that's why I come back to, how do you bridge know, like, and trust? You care about your people. And you only can do that by spending time with them and actually taking a genuine interest. And the whole notion of, when we're so committed to the mission that we're on, it's okay to be wrong. I'm going to get it wrong. I don't know that anyone's failed more than in their career than I have, Dave. But that's because I'm trying to do epic things. And I'm
Sure.
okay with being wrong. It's just the ability to be so genuine and so grounded. I believe that ego is the enemy. And so when I hire people, I talk to them about ego. If you start asking the question, how does this reflect on me, instead of, is this good for the business? Then
Yeah.
I have failed you as the senior most leader,
Right.
because I haven't connected you to the mission and how you contribute to it. And the day that you have that thought, well, you need to come see me, and I either need to do a better job of explaining it to you, or help you find a new place where you can contribute to a different mission.
Right. Well, and we use DISC and EQ a
Mm-hmm.
lot because I got to say, there's questions that people want to know the answer to that sometimes you don't know. Like if I ask you a question, how do you like to be communicated with, or
Mm-hmm.
what drives you? Those are hard questions. So one of the great tools to use, either in the hiring stage or in the team development stage, or both, is using an assessment like, DISC with EQ, because of those exact things. I mean, I want people to be positive and I want people to talk. And I kind of have a list of things outside of the job description. There's all these
Yes.
tasks, right? And I say, well, if the job could talk, what does it say it wants? It
Mm,
needs somebody that can be around people. I mean, I've talked to sales
love that.
professionals all over the place, and you're in the interview, whether it's for my company or me hiring for somebody else, and they're like, you ask the dumb question, can you sell? Oh my gosh, I can sell ice to Eskimos. Well, we have no way of really challenging that, right? So you hire the guy or girl, 3 months into it, it's like, man, do you have like a twin? Because you can't sell a hot dog to a starving man. And here I'm stuck now. I got to try this square peg round hole thing. So,
Yep.
trying to use some science in this, to your point, I think is really awesome. So,
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, as we start to land today, I want to learn more about your mission. So, for those of you that can't see it, it's on his screen. It says positively impact 5 million people in the next 4 years. So how are you doing that? And how can we help you?
Yeah. Thanks for that. I am super passionate and inspired. I would tell you, Dave, I'm working harder at 48 than I ever have in my entire life. And that's because of the work that I'm doing. And, if I get this right, I will have two books published in the next 3 years. And
Okay.
I will be on stages sharing with people, to your point, the frameworks, the systems, and the process by which they can run a compelling company. The trick really is, how do you create compelling companies? Because people know what they want, they don't know how to do it. And so if we can merge that for them and create the roadmap, then I think it just becomes easier and easier to do that. The trick in all of it for me is to make sure that you still make it home for dinner, because I'm sure you've had situations where, again, success without fulfillment is the greatest ripoff in life. And the companies that I work with are the high flyers. They are the Inc. 500s, the fastest growing companies. And They say, yeah, but I don't even get to make it home for dinner. I don't make it to my kids' sports teams. I don't make it home to even tuck my kids into bed. So I have all this success, but without the fulfillment. And so to me, you have to bring that conscious intention to everything that you do. And that's really the mission that I'm on, so that people never have to show up to their work and say, God, I don't like what I do. You want them to say, I am so lucky. My CEO, my senior leader just creates such clarity for me, and I love my job.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's so hard. Let's be real. That doesn't happen every day. I mean, there are speed bumps in our life where it's like, man, why am I doing this? I wish I was a cart boy at Walmart. That's crossed my mind a time or two
Me too.
in my journey. But I have to say, for the vast majority of my time, I am in that same spot of like, I love doing this. It doesn't even feel like work. It's kind of fun, enjoyable, whatever words are, fulfilling. But man, if you're listening right now and you have success, whatever you define success as is awesome, but you don't have fulfillment, that sucks, to Jerry's point. And that's where I think, as we land today, that's really, there's probably a lot of people there. And
I,
where do they go? What is your advice? What's your tip for them if there's somebody listening right now that is successful in their mind, but they don't have fulfillment? What do you say to that person?
so I think when you get to a place in life where you may be financially wealthy and emotionally bankrupt, you've missed the point of why we do all of this. So how do we get back to that place? It's conscious intention. It's stopping and realizing finances create freedom for fulfillment. Now that I have this money, what's the impact that I want to go make on the world? What are the things that are truly important to me? Because, what's the difference between making $400,000 and $500,000? Well, I'd give up $100,000 to go make sure that I can take my kids to school every day,
Sure.
because it's not changing my lifestyle. And I
Right.
think sometimes we buy into this societal norm of more and now, more and now. You
Right.
got to this point, now you got to get to the next point. And my answer is not necessarily. You might be really happy with your lifestyle. One of the companies that I work with, they don't want to be the biggest company. What they want is to be operationally excellent in a stress-free environment where their customers love them. And you know what happened? Last year, they had their best year ever, their most profitable year ever, with the most cash in the bank. And so when you create that alignment and you create fun out of it, because that's what it feels like when you're having that fulfillment, it's really getting back to the place of, am I living my life on my terms? And taking the time to say, man, when I'm 75, what's the thing that's going to be really important? Because my mom passed away 2.5 years ago, and before she passed away, she looked at me and she said, son, you can't take it with you. And it was a great reminder that you're right. Like, I
Yep.
can leave it behind,
Right.
but in 2 generations, is anyone going to care who Jerry McNamara was? Probably not really. And so I better do a really good job
Right.
of living an aligned life and
Yep.
getting back to this place of what's the impact and what are my values, and making sure that I live my life in accordance. The way in which I think about that, Dave, and the tool that I give some people is, I know exactly what I want people to tell my kids at my funeral. That I was a good, nice guy, that I invested generously in people, that it was clear that I loved them, that I took some chances. Some of them worked out, some of them didn't, but people were better off for having known me. And when I give that as my framework for what's the lasting testimonial to my kids, then it becomes really easy about how I allocate my time, how I treat people, and how I act, because that's what's truly important to me.
Yep. And everybody has their own fulfillment idea. And I think that's what's so
Mm-hmm.
important about this. But you mentioned something take the time, and that's where a lot of people don't want to take the time. We don't want to slow down to be able to take that inventory, to do that work, because that's tough work. It's tough to sit on a park bench in the middle of the day when the stock market's going and you think of all the things whizzing by, and you got the FOMO fear of missing out. But
Yep.
you know what, I think that the people that I've met that have had that discussion with themselves versus the people that haven't had that discussion, you can tell there's just a vast difference between those people. So
Yeah.
for somebody that's go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to
Yeah.
capitalize on that point. You know, it's harder not doing that work. That to me is harder. And when you stop and think about it, we run our companies. You better have a financial model that you're using to run your company. You better have budgets, or else you're leaving success to chance that you're going to still have 2 shekels in the bank at the end of the year. But what if we budgeted our time the same way we budget our money? What if you got that intentional? Because there's 168 hours in every week. And once you start diving down in and saying, I'm spending my time on the things that are most important, just like we buy organic food. Why? Because eating organic, healthy foods are important to our family. And
Sure.
so we're willing to pay more for it.
Yep.
Same thing with our time. So I would tell people, spend your time as intentionally as you spend your money, and you'll be way further ahead.
Amen. We start with intentionality and we end with intentionality. What a great 360-degree view on that today. Jerry, for somebody listening that is like, they're like, I don't know what to do next. I want to learn more. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah. So three places where you can find me pretty easily. The first is provenchaos.com. That's the website where you can come find me. The second is we do a lot of posting, very active on LinkedIn. And so you can find me under Jerry Macnamara. And then the third is we have our podcast, which is Best Places to Lead. And you can find our previous episodes at bestplaces2lead.com. And really, the goal there, Dave, is to talk with people, CEOs, senior leaders who have been there, done that, had their teeth bashed in, willing to share the lessons, because I believe we're better together. And if you do that right, just like this conversation, I'm willing to share my information. I'd rather you not have to learn the lessons that I had to learn the hard way.
Yep.
And when you do that, I just think there's better camaraderie in life.
That's right. 3 different places that Jerry laid out. So please, if you're in that spot, rather than just jump into your next podcast or jump into your next activity, really do that hard work, take that minute and think about whether or not your fulfillment is easily explainable for you. And if not, you know what? Give Jerry a call. He'll be happy to help. He'll lead you in the right direction. He'll definitely share, some great content as he has for the last 45 minutes here today. And I just want to say thank you so much for opening up. Thank Rachel also for, for all that, because I'm sure she's been a big influence on you. So thank you for everything you're doing, and can't wait to keep watching the 5 million until you hit that 5 million mark. That's going to be awesome.
Well, Dave, I appreciate the opportunity to sit and chat with you and share some information back and forth, and appreciate the time today.